The laugh that knows my name. I didn't tell my mom where I was going. She was asleep on the couch, TV hissing low, and it felt like if I said the plan out loud, sneaking into the abandoned Cedar Glen amusement park, it would become real in a way I couldn't take back. It started as a dare, a photo of Cedar Glen in a group chat, a couple laughing emojis, and you won't. They knew about the clown. Cedar Glen had this walk-through funhouse called the Big Top. Out front stood a fiberglass clown mannequin, and sometime after the park closed, someone slid a cheap white plastic mask over its face and drew a new smile in black marker. Too wide, too confident. Double smile, people called it, like it was wearing a face on top of a face. I biked there around midnight and turned my phone to airplane mode before I got close. Fear feels worse with an audience. The fence was cut near the pines. I squeezed through, snagged my jeans, left a strip of denim behind like a little sacrifice. Inside, the park wasn't quiet the way empty rooms are quiet. It was quiet the way a mouth is quiet right before it says something. My flashlight found the rides in pieces. A roller coaster track like a black rib against the sky, carousel horses frozen mid-gallop. The flume rides water sitting green and unmoving. Then it found the Big Top entrance. And it found the clown. It was still leaning forward like it had been listening all these years. Mold streaked the painted suit. The mask had yellowed, but the marker smile looked fresh. The eye holes were empty. I lifted my phone, opened the camera, framed the clown, and tapped the shutter. The screen went black. Not dead black like someone covered the lens from the inside. I tried again. Black. I flipped to selfie mode. Black. From inside the Big Top, I heard a laugh. Not loud, not cheerful. The kind of laugh you hear when someone knows the answer and you don't. My first instinct was to run. My second was to prove my first wrong. I stepped over the threshold. The doorway swallowed my flashlight beam like it didn't want to give any of it back. My sneakers sounded too loud on the warped boards, and every little noise, my breathing, the click of the flashlight switch, the fabric of my hoodie brushing my ribs, felt like it was being recorded. Somewhere deeper in the building, something metal ticked once, twice, like an old ride trying to restart. I told myself I'd go in 10 feet and then turn around. I told myself that twice. Then a third time because my body kept walking anyway. The way you keep scrolling past something awful because stopping would mean you chose to see it. The air inside was damp and sweet with rot. My beam cut through dust and hit cracked mirrors, what was left of a hall of mirrors. My reflection came back in slices. An eye, a mouth, a stretched shoulder. I hated how easy it was to look for the version of me that looked meaner, older, more like my dad. In one panel, behind my reflection, stood a tall shape with a rounded head. I spun, empty room. When I faced the mirror again, it was gone. Then the laugh came right beside my ear, close as breath, and the mirror in front of me did something worse than showing a monster. My reflection smiled. Not me, the glass me. The corners of its mouth pulled upward slowly, like invisible fingers were doing it for me. Evan, a voice whispered. My name, spoken like it belonged to the walls. Who's there? I managed, and my voice sounded small. You brought a camera, the voice said, soft as cotton. But you don't want pictures, you want proof. My stomach tightened. Proof of what? Proof that it wasn't your fault. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was closing like it was embarrassed. The thing is, everyone thinks grief is just missing someone. Like it's a hole you walk around with and eventually you learn not to fall into it. Nobody tells you about the other part, the part where your brain keeps replaying the same few seconds, hunting for a frame where you could have done something different. At school, teachers were gentle for a while. The counselor asked me to draw feelings with colored pencils like I was 5. Kids stopped bringing it up after the first semester because tragedy gets old fast when it isn't yours. But guilt doesn't get bored, it just gets quieter. It learns to live behind your teeth. For a second I wondered if the laugh was mine. My flashlight beam trembled across the mirrors. In the glass, my face kept breaking apart and reforming. Me as a scared kid, me as someone tougher, me with my dad's jawline, me with a mouth pulled too wide. The funhouse wasn't showing me monsters. It was showing me options. It was letting my own fear do the costume work. Proof, the voice repeated, savoring it. Because if you have proof, you can stop asking the same question at 3 a.m. The words hit like a shove. My mind tried to reject them, but memory doesn't ask permission. Cedar Glen, 9 years old. Cotton candy sticking to my fingers. My dad laughing at the ring toss, acting like the world was a toy. Then the other memory, the one I keep buried under jokes and noise. His hand reaching across the console. Not to turn down the music. To tug at my seatbelt. Loosen it, he'd said, laughing like rules were punchlines. You'll be more comfortable. I did it because I trusted him. Impact, metal screaming, the world rolling, his hand gripping my arm like he could hold me in place by force. And me slipping free anyway. The voice exhaled, satisfied. There you are. The clown's head tilted, like it was listening for the most honest part of me to answer. You didn't even hate him, it whispered. That's the funniest part. You loved him so much you built a cage out of the accident and locked yourself inside so no one else had to. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say it wasn't like that, that I'd moved on, that I was fine. But my phone was still in my pocket, screen black, and I could feel how useless fine was in a place like this. Cold slammed into my shoulder, pressure like a hand made of winter. I whipped around, flashlight shaking. In the mirror, not behind me but beside me, stood the clown. Not fiberglass, not a mannequin, a thing tall enough to brush the ceiling, wearing the idea of a clown like a costume. Too many joints, fingers narrowing to points, a smooth pale face with a thick black smile painted across it, empty eye holes that still felt like starring. The room smelled like burnt sugar and old pennies. I tried to speak, my mouth moved, no sound came out. The clown leaned close, gentle as a lullaby. Say it. I shook my head. Say what you are. The mirrors around me caught 9-year-old me, 16-year-old me, all of them looking like they were waiting for me to stop lying. The words came out anyway, dragged up from somewhere deep and ugly. I'm the reason he's gone. Silence so complete it felt like the park held its breath. Then the clown laughed, slow and pleased, like I'd finally told the punchline. That's it, it whispered. That's why you came. You wanted a monster to blame because monsters make the math simple. It reached out and wiped a tear from my cheek with one pointed finger. The tear froze on contact. Behind it, the mirror wall rippled, and for a heartbeat I saw shelves lined with faces, masks, mannequin heads, painted grins, waiting like costumes. One of them looked like me. Freckles painted across the nose, a smile that didn't tremble. Put it on, the clown said, and the softness dropped out of its voice. Gravity replaced it. That was the real terror, not that it was forcing me, but that a tired, guilty part of me wanted what it offered. Quiet, simple, gone. Somewhere outside, faint and distant, a bird called. Dawn was coming. The world was starting whether I was ready or not. I tore my gaze away from the mask and ran. The funhouse tried to keep me, mirrors flashing, painted smiles blurring past. But I burst out into the open air and didn't stop until I was through the fence and on the road, pedaling hard enough to make my legs burn. Home looked normal in the early light. Garbage cans, sprinklers, a dog barking at nothing. Normal felt like a costume, but it was a comforting one. I slipped inside. Mom was still asleep on the couch. For 1 second, I wanted to wake her, to hear a human voice say my name in a way that didn't feel like a trap. I stepped forward, and my foot hit something on the floor. A Cedar Glen ticket stub, old yellow paper. It hadn't been there when I left. On the back, in thick black marker, it said, "Smile for me, Evan." I ran to the bathroom and flicked on the light. I stared at myself in the mirror, pale face, red eyes, raw skin on my arm where the fence had torn me. I leaned close, searching for paint, for freckles, for the proof I hadn't brought something home. At first, nothing. Then my reflection smiled. Just the corner of its mouth lifting, slow and deliberate, without my permission. My real lips stayed flat. I tried to speak, to shout, to call for Mom. No words came out. Behind my eyes, like a second heartbeat, came a soft, satisfied laugh. And the sadness hit harder than the fear, not because I thought the clown would kill me, but because I understood what it had taken already. Not my face. My voice. The part of me that could say the truth to another person and be held anyway. I pressed my palms to the sink until my knuckles went white. I tried again, forcing air up from my chest like you do when you're about to yell across a field. My throat shaped my mother's name perfectly, but the sound never arrived. It was like the funhouse had cut the wire between wanting and being heard. In the mirror, the smiling Evan watched me fail and looked almost proud. Mom shifted on the couch and murmured in her sleep. I stood there with my mouth open like a broken toy, staring at a smiling version of myself that wasn't mine, while the morning grew brighter and brighter like it didn't care. Outside, somewhere far away, I could almost hear a rusted Ferris wheel groan in the wind. Or maybe that was just my own laughter, learning how to sound like someone else.